added here. So today we're going to talk about user roles in the volunteer system, especially those management roles, and things you need to be paying attention to maintain appropriate system access, especially as people kind of come and go and leave your district. Because that happens. You know, people change jobs or retire and such. I'll just fix some background noise here before we go too much further. All right. So we're going to talk about I have a little PowerPoint, and then we can actually look at a site if we want to and go as deep of a discussion as need be. I don't have it's a pretty short presentation, so I have as much time as needed as people want to discuss things. So just kind of with that, keep that in mind. So why is it important to pay attention to who has access to your system? You know, that's a question I ask people a lot. Well, if they have access to your data, it's always important. It's especially important on the job side, where they have a little more access, especially to confidential data and whatnot. But I always think once a year at a minimum, it's a good idea to run a list of some of the roles of users and just kind of do a check real quick to see if there's anything that's changed, like who's left, who's no longer in that role, and take the time to clean up access and remove roles of people who do not need access to the system anymore. You know, when I worked in HR, we all had our little manuals and our to-do tasks and timelines and stuff, and we had set times of years when we did different things. And I'd encourage people to do kind of the similar thing, even with the volunteer system, kind of set up a little calendar reminder maybe annually of when to take notice of your roles and kind of monitor and check them. And so think of when a good time to review those roles might be. In my mind, it would probably be around the time you roll your access each year. You know, that summertime when people are going away. You know, it's a good kind of time to clean up and get ready for the next coming school year. And I say applicant data, I should say volunteer data, sorry. But yeah, roles, it's a good thing to take them away when they no longer need them. It's just to limit liability and to keep everybody safe, so to speak. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. So set up a schedule to monitor your management roles. And those are the roles I'm specifically talking about when it comes to your system, your volunteer system. Okay, so what are the management roles in the volunteer portal? You have a role, the HR administrator, and that gives you access to everything on the management tab. So you can do searches and you can read the disclosure information. You can add the events and traits and such. HR district admin is very similar to HR admin, but that role is designed for co-ops, so districts that share a portal, and it gives them just access to their particular district's information. And then the volunteer support, which is a limited management role, and it only gives the user access to the export screen, but they still get the lists of who's approved or not approved and so on. So those are your management roles. There's also the role of system manager. I didn't list that. That role gives people the ability to make changes to the lookup tables and also gives people the ability to shadow. I should have added it on the list. Sorry. I don't know how I missed that one. So those are your management roles, and those are the roles that you want to monitor closely and pay attention as people, you know, exit their position, leave the district, and so on. I get asked a lot, how can I quickly identify roles that are assigned to a user? We try to make it simple, and there is actually an export information that you can pull on your site, and you can sort it by role, and you can sort it by user. You can sort it multiple ways to give you that information. So I'm pulling this on the our demo site, which has very limited users, but on your site, if you pull the same role, you're going to find it's much larger and you're going to have a lot more data. But this is the way I suggest you monitor and manage your users. You can also use it to find all roles, not just management roles, which is helpful. It's an easy way to check different people at any time, so keep that in mind as well. So when you go to export information, if you have a lot of exports, I tend to filter by title, and I start by typing the word user just to whittle the list down. And I'm looking for this export called user roles. And this export is on, if you are a district that has more than one portal, this export is shared on all the portals you subscribe to. So if you have a jobs application, volunteer, professional development, or employee records, you can find the same export on all of the portals. And you click on the magnifying glass to open the report. An important thing to note when you're looking at this report, if you have more than one portal, it's also going to list the roles for all the portals as well. And so it's important to know how to filter the list to just be looking at the portal you're working with. And each portal is assigned a number. And you can see here, volunteer system is portal number 3. And that's consistent across the board everywhere. And PD is 2, jobs 1, and employee records is 0. And the reason I point that out is on the portals, a lot of the roles are similar, or they're the shared name. Because on volunteer, we have an HR admin role. We also have an HR admin role on the job application system. There's an employee role on all 4 of the portals. There's a guest role on all 4, and so on. So it's important to be able to filter to the portal you're specifically interested in looking at. So I hope that makes sense. If not, feel free to chime in and say, slow down. So here is an example. I've opened the export. I went ahead and I filtered to portal 3, so I'm just looking at the volunteer portal. And I was specifically interested in users that had the role of volunteer support. So I started to type in that role, or into the role name. And then I can export this out. And I've got my list. Don't worry too much about this expiration date. It has that there, but that really isn't anything you have to worry about. We just annually renew everybody's roles, so don't worry about that. But anyway, so here's my list, and I can see on my release site, at the time I pulled this list, there were 6 people that had this role. So then I can take that information and I can look at these people and decide, oh, well, so-and-so, she retired. I want to remove that access. I might also say, well, so-and-so retired. What other roles do they have? I could remove that role name and just filter to her individual name and get a snapshot of all the roles she has and decide, is there other roles that need to be taken away or not while I'm doing this? So that's kind of the idea behind this export. Oftentimes when I'm using this one, I'll just filter to the portal, then export it to Excel, and then do my little sorts while I'm in Excel because it's a little easier for me to filter when I'm in Excel rather than on the web, because sometimes it times out and then you get the error message and you get cranky. Okay. So you filter to your portal, export. Like I said, you can filter your data by roles, users, so on. And then you go back to the system and you can remove the roles from those identified accounts. And there's a couple ways to clean up roles for users. You have the ability to do it under the Assign Roles tool or under User Accounts. And both of them are found by going to System Manager, System Utilities. When I am cleaning up roles, if I'm going to be looking at more than one user, I tend to use Assigned Roles. And I'll explain that in just a moment. If I'm only doing one, then I tend to go to User Accounts. Assign roles. go to System Manager, System Utilities, and the Assign Roles screen is the first one to appear. Oh, I forgot to update. This says Job Application. It should say Volunteer Application, sorry. Click the Applicable Radio button, select the role, and so on. So let's look at what that screen looks like. So when you get to the screen, it automatically defaults to Assign Roles, and you're going to select the portal that you're working with, and then you select the role. And when you do that, the list of all the users that currently have that role are going to show up on the right. And anybody you want to remove, you're just going to click on, and it's going to highlight their name. And then you would click the Remove Users button. And when you do that, their name's going to disappear from the list. And that's how you know you've successfully removed the role from their account. If, of course, you made a mistake, you're like, oh, no, Michael's supposed to still have that role, I could click on M for Moody, and all the users with the last name M would show up here. I would find him on the list, highlight his name on this side of the screen, add users, and it would put him back, and that role would be reassigned to that user. The reason I like using assign roles when I'm working with more than one person, one, especially if I'm working on one particular role, I'm going to get the list all at once and I can quickly highlight and remove people. The other reason is when I go to user accounts and I look at one user's record, the system, and then I go to look at the next user, the system tends to cache, and I'm actually looking at the same user's previous record. And I'll show you, actually, we'll go to the demo site and show you what I mean. So you just have to be cautious that you're not, that you're clearing your cache. And we do have a request in with the programmers to fix that. And once we get everybody transitioned to the new servers, I think they're going to be able to get that fix put in place. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling. So does it make sense on how to remove roles using the Assign Roles tool? I know it says assign, but it really should be assign/remove, but that was a little clunky and took up a lot of real estate, so that's why the tool is called Assign Roles. But remember, it also works in reverse. Okay. Of course, you have the option to go to user accounts, which hopefully a lot of you do, because that's also how you can reset passwords, unlock an account, or add someone to a different portal if you're a site that subscribes to more than one portal. When you come to user accounts, you click on the user account tab, you can search for users in a bunch of different ways. You can search by ID number, last name, first name, email address. You can even click on the little filter and change the parameters. They're always on this screen believed to set to it starts with, but you could change it to contains. I find that to be very helpful when searching by email. If I know part of their email address, I can change the filter to contains and then type the part I know of their email address, and it'll usually filter the list and help me locate the user. So I'm not sure if you're aware of how to change the filter. So it's just a right click and it'll open a little menu, and then you select the new filter option you want to use. Same is even true with there's filter options here. Like if you were to click on the filter on JAS, you could ask for it to only show you people that are authorized or people that aren't. Same with PDS, VAS, and so on. And then once you locate the user that you want to make updates to their account, you click on the pencil and it'll open their record, and it's going to look something like this. And you can see right away which portals they've been authorized on. On this example, they've been authorized on all 4. You would click on the user role button, and this little screen here would open. And depending on which portals your district subscribes to will determine which radio buttons you see. When you open a user's record and you see this and you have the option to choose the portal, that's a good sign. That means your screen has not cached. Okay, so I would select volunteer application, and it would open the next screen, which is a list of all the volunteer roles. And I could come in here and I could make the changes to this user. So this user's leaving. I'm going to take away volunteer support. I would uncheck that box. I would save my roles, and I would click the little X to close the screen. So when it comes to caching, if I were to go to the next user and within user accounts and open and go to user roles, if it opens to this screen without giving me the option of seeing that previous screen, this one, that's a word of caution that it's cached to the previous user. And so you're actually looking at whomever you were last working with roles, not the actual user you're working with. A quick fix to that problem is clicking on a different portal when you're on this screen. So if I hit professional development, it's actually going to refresh and show me that actual user's roles. And then I could click back on the portal I'm working on and it'll reload the correct roles. So just keep that in mind until we get the programmers to fix that caching issue. Okay. And then close your roles, blah, blah, blah. There's my little note about caching. When you get back to the screen, you can save it and your changes have been made. And that's kind of how we handle management roles. Questions about that? Do we understand the importance of why we want to take away management roles when people leave? Obviously, you know, I've worked in HR for a long time, and it's always that limiting your liability. It's that need to know business. You know, the less people, you know, only letting people that actually need to have access to data is a good thing, and not just opening it up to everybody. It keeps you from getting into a pickle. All right, well, that's kind of it. I'll stay on the line, and if there's any questions, I'll answer them. Otherwise, thank you for joining me. Hopefully that made sense. I didn't confuse you. If you need any help, or if you'd like the support team to help you kind of to run lists of your users and their roles, we can do that. Or if you have questions about other roles, feel free to you know, ask us those questions, and we'll do our best to answer and take care of you. Thanks.